I'm Paul Watson and I'm the Director of the SiDE Social Inclusion through the Digital Economy project. There's been a long history at Newcastle and Dundee universities of doing work on trying to use technology to help people who are socially excluded, be it older people or disabled people or younger people who are on the margins of society. And what we wanted to do was to build on this work, but also to give it a real impetus. And that's what this project's allowed us to do. So we've used the funding to build an excellent multidisciplinary team with expertise in lots of different areas. We realised that you couldn't solve these problems just with technologists. You needed people who understood society and how people become excluded. We needed people with expertise in medicine and health. We needed electrical engineers. We needed people who understood business models which allow you to get these good ideas out there at scale. We've not just recruited people who are excellent in their own particular field, we've recruited people who are actually good at working with people from outside their field to explain why their ideas, why the knowledge from their field can actually make a difference and allow us to produce systems which are much more likely to help people who are socially excluded.
I have two roles in the SiDE project. One is to lead the accessibility strand. So again, that's a part where we're looking at technologies to reduce barriers for older adults and people with disabilities when they're trying to use technologies. And the other role that I have is to lead the user pool. The research and the accessibility activity is all about trying to make technology easier for people to use. We look at the barriers that people are having in using technology and try and find out ways around the barriers. With accessibility, there's getting to be more and more of a gap between mainstream technologies that are widely used out there and accessible technologies that someone with a disability could use. One of our projects is making it possible for deaf signers of British Sign Language to call hearing people if they need to. Mobile Sign now allows deaf signers to have access to hearing people at any point in time. By being able to contact a sign language interpreter, they can have immediate contact to a hearing person through this interpreter. The cognitive modeling project is one that we're doing with IBM. The goal is to have something to put in developer tools so that when developers are writing software, they have a better understanding of the needs of older users. So the software will model the kinds of behavior that an older user would generally have when interacting with a computer.
IBM's interest in this project is how do we equip designers of future software applications to do a better job of anticipating the way that software is going to be used by a wide range of people. The problem with design typically is it's done by folks who design for people like themselves. What we need to do is broaden their understanding of populations that they're not familiar with, in particular an older population, so that we can subject a design to a series of tests and see whether in fact it's likely to be usable by that larger population.
Portrait software is designed to be used by caregivers in care homes to assist people who have late-stage dementia. These are people who aren't very communicative anymore. Portrait software gives information about the life histories, the interests, the families of the person with dementia. Our strategy with the accessibility work is to talk to the end users, find out what the particular problems are in their lives, and then develop technology as a solution for them. So we do talk to end users a lot. And with the user pool, what we're trying to do is build up a large cohort of people who are interested in participating in our research. So we have older adults, people with disabilities, some younger people, all who have signed up to participate. We don't want to be developing things in isolation. We want to make sure that we're getting things developed that people like and will use. So we expect users to be involved in our research through all stages, from the very beginning, through the testing, all the way through the end. The User Center is set within the School of Computing at the University of Dundee. It's right on the ground floor. As soon as you come in the building, you see the User Center. We have drop-in sessions for people from the community every day of the week. People can just come in and say, I have a problem with this, I'd like to learn about this. It's a very welcoming kind of environment. The people who work in the user center are generally students from the School of Computing. So if someone comes in and says, I have a problem with my MP3 player, what do I do? We can find a student who can help them with it. We have a lot of people who come in like with digital cameras, they just got as gifts and don't know how to use them. We have students who can help them out.
The user perspective is fundamental to the work that's done in SiDE, and that it's really important that everything that we develop in partnership with users, so that hopefully the technologies that are developed through SiDE are appropriate and as relevant to both people today's needs and then looking to the future as well.
The user pool is a great resource for all the researchers inside, people from all the different activities, connected home and community, transport. If they need participants for the research, they can just contact the user pool and we will find people who meet their needs.
This participant pool has been an excellent source of managing, recruiting people on our behalf to be part of the trials.
As well as involving individuals, which we do through recruiting through local communities, we also work very closely with the voluntary and community sector in the city and across the North East, and that's to ensure that we're working as far as possible with people that traditionally have not had a lot to do with research and with universities.
In terms of the user pool, I think one of the real big achievements is that the users are realizing that they have an actual voice in the development. Many feel that people haven't always asked what kinds of technologies they want, how they want technologies to work, and I think this has been very empowering for the people who've been participating in our research.
A simple way to think of the Connected Home and Communities programme is in terms of three elements. So the first is the problem of activity recognition. So that's how can we use sensors embedded in the world to recognise activities that people engage in. How can we then use that information to support people? So if you're thinking of people with dementia or people with Parkinson's living alone, how can we provide them with what we call situated support? And lastly, how can we tackle the problem of social connectedness and use digital technologies to promote connectedness with people either within the families or within a community?
The overall vision of Philips is that we want to improve people's lives through meaningful innovations. And the reason why the SiDE is important is because we see that there is a big pressure on healthcare providers, on home healthcare organizations to provide better care at a lower cost. So you will expect that in the future more and more care will have to take place outside of the hospital. Things have to happen in the home. And specifically, if I look at the community and the connected home track, I see a lot of elements in there that help us in that quest, in actually supporting people to live a healthy life in their home environment.
It's a cueing device to help prevent drooling problems in people with Parkinson's disease. It attaches onto the wrist, like so, like a normal wristwatch. It's switched on via a button, which is designed to be easily manageable by somebody with Parkinson's. And it basically vibrates once a minute to remind the wearer to swallow their saliva and therefore reduce their drooling problem.
Okay, so one project is the ambient kitchen. So this is our prototype pervasive computing environment. So this is a kitchen where we've embedded sensors in all the utensils. We have RFID in the workbenches, and we can track users' actions using activity recognition algorithms and reason about what people's activities are in the kitchen. The reasons why we want to understand are multiple. If you're someone with dementia, you're looking for a system that will provide you with automated support. If you're in a residential facility and you're an occupational therapist, you want a technology that can actually monitor people's ability to live autonomously. And we have another application of it where we're using it with schools and actually using our ability to track people's activities in the kitchen to support them learning a language. So essentially they're taught to cook in French.
More and more so, it's all about data. And the value of the applications is in the data that is being collected. And there are big concerns and big issues there. And we're particularly interested in privacy. So privacy means, in technology terms, the potential loss of personally identifiable data. The work we're doing is simplifying the tools that people use to protect their privacy. We'll automatically find out in what context the data is collected. And depending on the context, software will advise you about yes, you should release it, or no, you shouldn't release it.
So we have a wide range of collaborators with medics, social gerontologists, psychologists, linguists. And I think the interesting thing about the activity is actually given us a platform to do this sort of interdisciplinary research. Research that's a bit more adventurous than you might do in a conventional computer science program. I think the other characteristic of the activity is that we've taken a very making-based, in-the-wild research approach. So most of our research involves building installations, real-world deployments, and understanding users' needs and evaluating them in the actual context in which they would be used and are intended for.
The technology perspective is mostly an enabler. And the technology perspective is put in place to let the activities succeed with their work and to find a common ground between those activities.
As our research methods strongly depend on participatory design and participatory evaluation. So users have really been at the heart of everything we do. The other aspect is the design perspective. So here we're very interested in how design methods actually frame the technologies that you produce.
So in all our projects in the creative area, we work with the ethos of participation and with creative practice at its core.
We are looking in particular in this group at creative uses of technology. We're trying to see, in this case, how people who shy away typically from technology can actually, in 5 or 10 minutes, really embrace basic principles of interaction.
We partner with organizations like Generator Music, Helix Arts, Sage Gateshead, all of whom have very highly developed participatory arts programs, to bring to them the kinds of digital technologies and creative methods that they might not otherwise have had access to. We're very interested in the design perspective with Pete Wright.
Design for us is really about getting a deep understanding of user needs and responding to that within the production of both digital products and, relevant to SiDE, digital services. And we're very interested in thinking about the tools, methods and techniques that we need to actually involve end users in the design process itself.
We worked with a group of young people to imagine an activity, and it turned out they wanted to make an interactive education resource.
The type of research I do is mainly participatory design with different types of social groups. What the young people designed was an information pack for other young people in schools to understand what educational paths are available for them. What's interesting about this project is that it was a participatory design project that involved the young people not just as users or like collaborators, but as the actual driving force of the process. They were the ones who were actually in charge of implementing the prototype.
I see the social science perspective as having two roles within SiDE. The first is to bring a place-based perspective to the overall project. The second is to explore how digital technologies are used in real places by organisations, communities and individuals. The overall approach that we have is to work with organisations who are already out in the community. Main areas that we're focusing on are the way that digital technologies can be used by older people, and at the other end of the scale by younger people, particularly hard to reach disadvantaged youth.
We work with Helix Arts, a leading regional participatory arts organization that puts artists in contact with groups in the region who may be at risk of marginalization, homeless people, young people. In a project that we have called Making the Invisible Visible, we're using creative media technologies to expose the process of participatory arts, to allow documentation to be happening live of community-based arts activities. So what we'd like to do is to put in place practices and methods for working with community organizations here that then can be rolled out and transferred and passed on.
We've been looking at people's use and consumption around the digital music within the home and the household. Digital music is a very interesting medium because it's a kind of cross-generational medium. It creates within families and across communities interesting points of connection and also points of difference as well. So we've been doing quite extensive studies of how people use, consume, share music in a number of different social contexts. So we've been looking at how families relate to music, how they share music across generations, children, parents. We've been looking at how couples use music to maintain their relationships at a distance, thinking about how they share music, and a range of different kind of contexts of digital music consumption to try to map out the design space and the design opportunities for new forms of musical media and the way in which they can be used to increase participation in society and social life in general.
Inclusivity in transport is very, very important. Enabling people to get from A to B, to develop and maintain social networks, to do everyday things, and most importantly to give them a wider sort of economic area of activity where they can possibly have jobs and other things is really, really important. Transport's very lumpy in this country. We rely so much on cars to get from A to B. However, many people do not have access to cars, and many people have mobility impairments of one sort or another, and therefore they feel mobility excluded and socially excluded because of that. We've got older people that may be excluded because the transport modes are not available to them because of mobility issues, or it may be that they're being forced to give up driving because of their age and difficulties they have driving. So we're exploring how we can support those to drive safer for longer. Others are mobility excluded because they don't know how to use public transport, they don't know where transport is available that suits maybe their needs and disabilities. So provision of information, provision of navigation, provision of help in a very lucid and accessible way is very, very important to us. So we feel the digital economy has a wide range of potential solutions, shall we say, to help with that. One of the primary projects we've been looking at is exploring what stops older drivers driving. We're doing that in a number of ways. We've got focus groups and we also have a driving lab, which is an electric car where we can actually measure people whilst they're driving to see their performance, measure their stress, see where they're looking out the window and determine, what are the limitations they have as they get older. And we can do a similar job in the driving simulator here, all with a view to see whether there are some technologies that could be simply implemented in vehicles to help them drive safer for longer. And we're exploring things like smart navigation systems, particularly for older generation, the way the information is given, things that assess distance of oncoming traffic for enable people to turn right, things to provide better information about what's in the periphery, because a lot of older people have a difficulty in turning around to check whether there's cars on the right or the left. We've been looking at technologies that can advise people how to travel so they don't feel so socially excluded. So identifying metro stations which are accessible, for example bus routes with buses on which have low floors for pushchairs and wheelchair users, and really just information that will help them feel comfortable and secure when they're going.
Okay, in this particular case, the user has low vision and has some mobility impairment and is using an iTouch application to navigate through a building. The information that's presented on the screen has been presented so that she's able to see it and so that she's able to successfully indicate her preferences in moving about.
So it's developing that sort of bespoke, personalised information that can do that. And evidence suggests that once people become confident with the information they're given and it's relevant and it helps them to do something that they've been reluctant to do before, it does actually deliver great benefits to them.
If I did have a sat-nav in the car, I would probably venture further and wouldn't mind going further because I'd be more sure of my way and not have to be anxious or concerned about whether I was in the right lane or got the right turn off. So I think I'll be happy, and I might even drive a bit further.
There's lots of issues with transport systems that we're beginning to identify in terms of accessibility, in terms of information, in terms of how people drive their cars now as opposed to previous generations, that could all be improved in different ways, either through the digital technologies or through other means to actually help people drive and travel safer, secure and more comfortable for longer.
At the AA, we really think that this work that Newcastle University are doing, looking at social inclusion in the digital economy, is absolutely vital, because amongst our members we're already seeing there is an ageing population. We've got more than 1 million drivers who are over 80, and we've got to think about how they fit into society in the future when we get more and more elderly drivers working longer, driving longer. And I think the digital economy has a role to play. So we need to talk to older drivers, we need to look at the technology, we need to get the researchers together with organisations such as our own so that we can find a pathway that is safe and is successful.
The different perspectives of SiDE. Clearly we're very much engaged with the users, trying to understand their issues with travel and how we can use the digital economy to improve their travelling experience and improve their inclusion. So that's been very, very important to us. But that can't be taken in isolation, because we need to look at the business aspects and the business case, because there's no point in us as researchers defining something to put in a car or defining an information system to support travellers if there's no business case for it for the stakeholders or the car manufacturers to actually put in.
Even though the objectives are highly desirable, unless we have the resources to sustain those activities and scale them up, we are not really going to achieve those objectives. The business perspective is to ensure we are doing things in a financially sustainable manner.
So a lot of work is going into elaborating the business cases for this, and that's quite difficult because we're talking about social issues here. We're not talking about pure pounds and pence. We've made some fantastic strides forward. We've built up a research capability and a relationship with the end users, which is really helping us to understand the complexities of transport and inclusion. And I hope in the next period of SiDE and beyond SiDE, we can really demonstrate the benefit of what the underlying research we've done now can actually deliver to society.
I was really delighted to be asked to chair this steering group, not just out of self-interest because I'm an older person, but in my working life. I was involved in the promotion of new technology. And the thing that I learnt over the years is just because technology is there doesn't mean people will use it. You actually have to look at it from the user's point of view. And it's very important, therefore, in this project that we involve users, and we have all done that from day one.
What I'm really interested in is developing some of the in-the-wild design and research methods that we've employed in the first 2 years of the project.
I'm hoping that the work that we do in the lab can go out of the lab and then be taken up in society as a whole.
So much of the things that we're excited about are actually getting to high impact problems where we can really make a difference to people's lives.
We have a better grasp on what the real problems are. We have real data to identify context, etc. So my hope is that will amount to some breakthrough contributions.
I think we're entering a really exciting phase now, because a lot of the technology that we've developed, we're now ready to embed, and we're now ready to develop projects where we can really see the health and social benefits and the quality of life benefits to the users of that technology.
SiDE is halfway through this 5-year program. During the first half, the focus is very much on identifying challenges and opportunities, understanding the different domains. But I think in the second half we will be focusing more on realizing those ideas and perhaps generating impacts and commercializing some of those technologies and services.
I think what SiDE's doing is absolutely spot on. Everyone needs to use the technology that's available to remain independent, stay productive, stay healthy, stay socially connected. So digital inclusion resonates very well. The approach SiDE's taking, along with everything else that's going on in Newcastle, is not only unique and innovative. I think it's a model for what needs to happen all around the world, because the global aging phenomena is not just limited to the UK. It's a global issue, and I think SiDE and specifically the northeast of England is taking a lead here.
The city of Newcastle will see a huge increase in the number of older people over the next few years. Older people are not a burden. Older people contribute a huge amount to the city, and I want to see this technology used to enable people to stay involved and contributing for longer. And then when we get to the point that we can no longer do that, how the technology can support us in remaining independent as long as possible.
I'll be taking over managing the creative activity. The other big thing that's happening, which is a really important development for SiDE, is the new project which we've just won called the Creative Exchange, which is a knowledge exchange between arts and humanities research academics on the one hand and creative industries on the other. People like the BBC, Media City, a number of other universities, RCA and Lancaster, are all involved. And what we see that as being is a tremendous potential for getting some of the work that we've been doing with SiDE out into industry and out into the world, so it's a kind of route to impact.
The way the Research Council have established these digital economy hubs with the flexibility they've given them and the focus and the opportunity to bring these multidisciplinary teams together is a new paradigm for research, and I think it's going to really deliver some fantastic benefit well beyond the obvious. And I think beyond the hub, the multidisciplinary team and the research infrastructure that's been built to support that will ensure that the UK has leading teams of researchers and new leaders of research in these areas for decades to come.
The aim of the project is to make a difference to people's lives, and we've had a number of achievements so far. So academically, we've produced papers for the best conferences in the field. We've won best paper awards and prizes for the work that's been done. In terms of prototypes and getting the ideas out there to really make a difference, then for example we've had some technology in a dementia care home in the northeast of England, which has really made a difference to the patients and also the families of those patients when they visit. And in other areas as well we've had successes. So one of the world's largest computer companies, Red Hat, has created a centre of excellence in cloud computing in this university here at Newcastle because of the work that we've been doing on the SiDE project. We realised that even in a 5-year project we're not going to be able to address all of the problems, and there'll be new technologies always coming along that we could use to really make a difference to people's lives. What we want to do is to create something which will continue on through the years and the decades beyond the end of this current funding, so we can continue to tackle these really deep, challenging but important problems.